Hello, folks. It's Bradley J. We are live today. We're with Emily Sweeney, Globe reporter. Is that what you call it? Globe writer, Globe reporter. Which is it, Emily?
It's both. I'm a staff reporter. That's what it says in my byline, so that works.
Staff reporter, Boston
hmm
Globe. Right on. That's got to be cool. And how long you been doing that?
I've been with the Globe now for, let's see, since 2001, so just over 20 years.
Wow. And
Wow.
we're talking about your recent article, high flying, high flying drones, unmanned jetpacks, and other odd sightings that pilots in New England have reported. And it seems like there's some strange goings on out there. And even if you don't call them strange, they're certainly dangerous. Why don't you give us the outline of the article?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I started looking. The FAA tracks any reported sightings of that pilots see in the sky of, whether they be high flying drones or just unidentified objects. And so I started looking at some of the data back in 2018, and I was just shocked to see, like, sometimes there were like these descriptions of these huge drones being seen at like heights of over 10,000 feet, over 15,000 feet. These are unmanned, aircraft systems. And yeah, so I started compiling local sightings. And there were some really weird ones. I can talk about a few of them if you like.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So one recent one was, a drone just flying dangerously close to a plane near Hyannis. That happened like last year, and the plane actually, it was a smaller plane, but it was maybe 30 feet off the wing,
Yeah,
and the plane had
the
to,
Piper Cub. The thing
yeah,
was 30 feet away, which is zero, like zero away,
when you're in the
and
sky.
he had to go and turn to the right.
Exactly. So, and then there was also, I mean, this isn't New England, but over Pennsylvania, a pilot reported seeing an unmanned jetpack uh, flying in the air. And there was a sighting in California too of an individual wearing a backpack sighted by a pilot. Police tried to look for this individual wearing the backpack flying through the air and didn't find anything. But all these sightings, I give credence to because these are actual like licensed pilots saying,
Yeah,
reporting to the FAA and air control what they saw. So
a
some
man with
weird
a back, a man with a backpack could be a parachute, right?
jetpack.
But the man with the backpack.
Apparently the one in California, the guy apparently was traveling above a highway, like, so I mean he was being self-propelled,
Weird.
an apparent jetpack.
Oh, I
Again,
see.
this is what was reported. That's what the pilot thought he saw.
And the big
Um,
concern is that it makes flying less safe because you're sooner or later somebody's plane is going to hit one of these things.
yeah, well, that's number one. That's a huge concern. And, another big concern, or just like what made me curious in the first place, is like, where the heck are these things coming from? You know what I mean? Drones going up, being seen like 15,000 feet in commercial airspace. You know what I mean? Like, usually, is it a U.S. military, operation? Is it a private entity? Is it somebody just like fooling around? Like, but that's really high up.
What's the
And
highest one that you remember?
yeah, so the highest one that I found, like a local one, I believe was about 15,000 feet.
I see.
Um, so again, oh no, actually 16,000 feet. And that was coming from a flight crew that was like flying either to or from Logan Airport. But they described it as a square shaped drone with a dome on the top and four motors flying through the air at 16,000 feet.
So a lot of these problems have to do with drones. What's the answer? I see that this lame, weak language in the law about it could be subject to fines and even imprisonment, but that's so wimpy. May be subject. Yeah, nobody's going to worry about that. What are they going to do to give this thing some teeth? I'll tell you what they need to do. There needs to be, unfortunately, a little bit more government bureaucracy, and it's a department that goes around and checks everybody's drone has to be licensed. If you don't have a license, you do 100% get a mandatory fine, and maybe you mandatory go to jail for 30 days because it's a big deal. And if they find a drone that's being bad, they have a number on it and they can track you down and you have to pay for it.
Mhm.
I I wonder if Massachusetts people or government have the stomach to do that. I figure they got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like the FAA right now, like does require drones. I mean, first of all, recreation drones, like recreational drones, even if like you have it registered, you're not supposed to be flying them more than 400 feet up. Generally speaking, you know
You're
what I
not
mean?
supposed to, but has anyone gotten fined? Has anyone gone to jail?
That's a good question. I'd have to guess there's just because there's so many drones out there. And I have read in police logs of people getting, kind of like found by police. If you're like flying a drone around Logan Airport, you know what I mean? Like they can probably find you if you're on the ground nearby. What's interesting though is like no matter what, if they made like the strictest law, these weird drones, I'll just call them,
Yeah.
the ones that like I just looked at my notes here. There was another one where a pilot didn't even know. He said it was like something like a UAS, which is something like an unmanned aircraft system. He wasn't sure what it was at 15,000 feet above Connecticut. Nobody knows where that drone came from. Was it from another government? Was it from, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like, who's going to get in trouble? That's so high up. Who's
So
controlling that drone? It's
why are people even allowed to buy anything that goes higher than 400 feet? That it should be illegal to sell them to people. If you even own it, it should be a problem. You should pay. You should pay one way or the
Yeah,
other.
that's also a good point, Bradley. And the thing is that this problem is just going to get, even bigger because, like right now, in my article, I mentioned, how many, drones there are, and just like looking that up here. But they're saying by 2026 there could be up to 2.6 million commercial and recreational drones
Yeah.
in the air flying around, and that's just the ones we know about. Like that's just the ones we know.
So another concern is terrorism, because we know now that drones are easily weaponizable. You see that they play a huge part in in Russia's disastrous war against Ukraine,
Mhm.
and so a terrorist could easily rig these up with some sort of rocket
Yeah,
and
yeah.
take down a
Uh,
commercial airliner, which would, I, you know, post 9/11, I would think would be a big concern.
no, totally. And one of the pilots, that in the article that I wrote, in fact, one of the pilots thought he saw a rocket attached to a parachute, while he was flying his plane. And, you know, it's a really I don't know. I find it fascinating and I'm going to be like looking at this FAA data. Like I've been looking at it, since like 2018. But yeah, I think it's a legitimate concern, because the technology is just going to get better. And again, we have no idea where all these like high flying drones are coming from. So that's kind of
Well, yes, and so you get one at 16,000 feet, and you, some folks start to wonder, did this drone come from some human on the ground because that's pretty high, or did an alien mother spaceship drop the drone down? Right. That is something that people bring up. Right.
I mean, like I said, there's just so like some of these things are just completely unknown flying objects. So we don't know,
But it's
you know.
possible. That's a concern,
So
right?
I mean, again, it's completely unknown, so yeah,
So, what do you think about that? Do you think we have been visited or are being visited by beings from other planets?
that's a very good question. I mean, the likelihood, just given how big the universe is, this is my personal opinion.
Right.
Like, hey, anything's possible, But yeah, I mean, like again with you know, these type of like vehicles whipping around. commercial airspace. Where they came from, again, I have not been able to find out, but I'm
I
working on it.
I know that alien spacecraft's not the crux of the article. But have you ever heard of anybody seeing one? Do you know anybody who has? Because I do. Do you have a story?
I gotta say personally, I saw some weird, strange movements in the sky many years ago at Castle Island, and the way the lights were moving, like there's no way it was a satellite. A friend of mine was with me too, saw the same thing, and it was just like lights in the sky doing very, very strange movements, and we were both like, "What the hell was that?" Like, you know what I mean? It was something that was so high up and so unnatural that I don't know. I saw something. I think.
I in high school I had a friend named Billy G. We'll call him,
Okay.
and he had a Carmen Ghia, and he used to drive that all around, and I would hang around with him. And one night when he was driving home alone in Lee, New Hampshire, he was driving to Lee, New Hampshire. He said that some sort of craft with red light came down and came right over his car and stayed right over his car and followed him down the road.
Wow.
And he freaked. And
Naturally.
it was never explained. It was one of those things that's too weird to talk about very much. He told me the story. He said, don't tell anybody. But that was many years ago, and he'll never see this. So, um, people have weird stories. So Joe, who's kind of he's an engineer. He's a
Okay.
sciencey guy. He says ice crystals. So what's that mean, Joe? Can you elaborate before we leave?
Yeah, I'm
It's
curious.
Yeah. So before we go, what are you working on next?
Next, well, you know what I'm really excited about is going to be launching a new series for the Globe focusing on cold cases, unsolved murders. And we're going to be doing this on a regular basis and really hoping to like shed some light on some forgotten cases and maybe hopefully, somebody might see the story, come forward with new information. Um, Technology has also come a long way, but I'm really excited about that. So,
Okay. Joe says what you saw were ice crystals. Maybe he means some sort of light reflecting off ice crystals. I'm not sure.
hey, Joe, I'm gonna totally look up ice crystals and what they look like, and I'll let Bradley know if that's what it looked like that I saw. But
Okay.
thank you because all these years, I mean, it was very bizarre. I've never seen anything like it since. So, but I'll check that out. Ice crystals.
Oh, now he says that's a standard Blue Book Project Blue Book response. I don't know what that is. Project
I
Blue
don't
Book.
either.
Okay. Well, good to know. There's
Thanks, Joe.
a lot of stuff to look up. Joe, just tell us quick what Project Blue Book is, and then we'll be done. So that's cool. Cold case, and that
Yeah.
those are going to run on Sundays or something, once a week, once a month.
You know what? We're figuring that out, the frequency, but it will be launching soon, probably within the next few weeks.
I'm
So
guessing
I'll
you
let you
pick.
know.
I'm guessing you pitched that to them because that's your thing. It's your strong suit. That's your love. You actually written a book on gang
Organized
violence,
crime. Yep.
criminals in early on in Boston, like in the 30s and 20s and teens.
Yep.
And we actually went on a tour to look at some of these places, which was fun.
Yeah.
We can do that
That was
again
great.
and then have some sort of drink after.
That sounds
And
fabulous.
good. And what about your Dropkick Murphy book?
Yeah. So the Dropkick Murphy book that I wrote will be released in May of this year. And I'll definitely be doing like some book talks and like book launch parties. And then I'm also working on another organized crime book about focusing on organized crime and the mafia in Boston in the 1990s.
And can you
So,
tell the folks about the outline of Dropkick Murphy, not the band? It's important they know this is not a story about the Boston band that takes sea shanties and tarts them up and sells merchandise. It's talk about the real Dropkick Murphy.
yeah, so the Dropkick Murphys, the band, is named after a real guy who was a professional wrestler during the Great Depression. He wrestled professionally at night and went to medical school during the day, became a doctor. And yeah, and so he was a professional wrestler, a doctor, and then he opened a rehab center for alcoholics out in Acton, Massachusetts. And his center was also like a training facility too, like for fitness, and a lot of professional boxers trained there. And it's just really interesting. He ran that for like decades. And so the stories about his life and, wrestling back in the day. And Ken Casey, the lead singer of, I'm sorry, not the lead singer, but co-founder of the Dropkick Murphys, one of the original members, he wrote the foreword for the book. Because that is where the Dropkick Murphys got their name.
Right. And I think the Dropkick Murphys have the honor of being the band that has the most merchandise for sale, which is, smart. Ken and whoever is in charge of that. If you go online and look up, you can buy Dropkick Murphys everything.
It's great.
It's crazy
Great band.
and great. So to wrap up, we have Joe saying that Project Blue was the United States Air Force investigation of UFOs.
Okay.
And they'll tell you that if you talk to the USAF, I guess they would tell you that was ice crystals. But it would be fun for you to look up ice crystals and see if that looks like what you saw. And exactly, when you say ice crystals, does it mean it must be light bouncing off ice crystals? What light?
Right. I'm going to be looking this up as soon as we're done with this.
Because if it's dark, if there's no light, you can't see ice crystals or anything else.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up. I know. I remember it like yesterday, what I saw. So, I'll look it up. And Joe, thank you for the recommendation, because I would love to solve this mystery that's, I have never been able to figure out all these years. So
you were a youngster back then, right?
I was, yeah.
I bet you were out on Castle Island. I bet you were up to no good.
I was just laying down looking at the stars.
Okay. Emily Sweeney, staff reporter for the Boston Globe and my rockin' friend. Thank you very much. Keep us in the loop, and make sure that when any of your books come out, you let me know. We'll do another thing. Anytime you have an interesting article. By the way, if you have any interest in doing a regular thing every couple of weeks, it saves me thinking of people to book. So
I would be honored, Bradley. Seriously.
Let me know.
So
good.
For sure.
So this, we've done this segment here for every New England community, particularly Massachusetts community. So I'm going to share to all the Massachusetts cities and towns that I can get my hands on. If you see this, why don't you share it to your town group? Like everything, all these town groups, everything Weymouth, for example. Each town has a group. Share it to that, and help turn on your fellow townspeople to this issue. So thanks, Emily.
All right. Thanks, Bradley. Thanks, everybody.
I'll say goodbye.